Right now, your brain is lying to you about your own future, and it does not even know it is doing it. Ask yourself a simple question. How much do you think you will change in the next 10 years? Now ask yourself how much you have changed in the last 10 years. Most people give wildly different answers to those two questions, and that gap is not an accident. It is one of the most consistent errors the human mind makes, and it quietly convinces millions of people every year that it is too late to start over. You probably assume feeling too late for something is just an honest read of your circumstances, a rational calculation about time, effort, and opportunity, but the real answer is far stranger. That feeling is not coming from a clear-eyed assessment of your life. It is coming from a glitch in how your brain models its own future self, and once you see the glitch, you cannot unsee it. Here is what nobody tells you. Psychologist Dan Gilbert, along with colleague Timothy Wilson, ran a study that asked people of every age from 18 to 68 to report how much their personality, values, and preferences had changed over the past decade, and separately, how much they expected to change over the next decade. Across every single age group, people consistently rated their past change as substantial and their future change as minimal. Gilbert called this the end of history illusion, the sense that whoever you are right now is basically the finished version of you, even though the data from your own past proves that belief false every single time. Think about that for a second. A 40-year-old will readily admit they were a completely different person. At 30, that same 40-year-old will insist they will be basically the same person at 50. But why would a brain build in an error this specific, this universal, and this wrong? Here is where it gets stranger. This is not simply a random mistake. It appears to be a byproduct of how memory and prediction work using completely different mental machinery. Neuroscientist and memory researcher Daniel Schacter has shown that imagining your future self relies on the same constructive memory system used to recall your past, except prediction has far less raw material to work with. Your past is documented in vivid, specific memories. Your future is built from vague, general impressions. A brain asked to imagine future change effectively runs out of detail and defaults to assuming more of the same. Not because change has stopped, but because imagining specific future change is cognitively expensive, and your brain, whenever possible, takes the cheaper option. This means the feeling of being finished is not a discovery about your character. It is a rendering limitation, the psychological equivalent of a video game failing to load the next area of the map and simply repeating the tile you are already standing on. There's a third piece to this puzzle, and it explains why this illusion feels so believable from the inside. Behavioral economist Katy Milkman, who studies the psychology of behavior change, discovered something called the fresh start effect. Milkman's research found that people are dramatically more likely to pursue new goals, whether it is exercise, learning, or career changes, immediately following a temporal landmark, a birthday, a new year, a new month, even a Monday. Her data showed spikes in gym attendance, goal-setting searches, and habit tracking app downloads clustering tightly around these dates. Crucially, Milkman found this happens because temporal landmarks psychologically separate your past self from your future self, creating what she called a fresh mental account. The old, finished version of you gets filed away, and a new chapter opens with a blank page. This reveals something important. The sense of being unable to change is not stable. It fluctuates depending on something as arbitrary as which day of the week it happens to be. If a feeling this significant can be flipped by the simple act of turning a calendar page, it was never really measuring your actual capacity for change in the first place. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. The brain's resistance to imagining future change likely was not a flaw for most of human history. Anthropological and evolutionary psychology research suggests that for a species living in small, stable social groups for tens of thousands of years, a consistent, predictable self was socially valuable. Trust between group members depended on being able to reliably predict how someone would behave tomorrow based on how they behaved yesterday. A person who seemed to reinvent themselves constantly would have been harder to cooperate with, harder to trust with shared resources, harder to fold into the long-term alliances that ancient survival depended on. Your brain's bias toward believing this is who I am permanently likely helped your ancestors signal stability to the people around them, even when it quietly cost those same ancestors their own capacity to imagine growth. Like, modern life removed the tight, small, unchanging social group that made that signal valuable, but the underlying bias stayed exactly where it was, misapplied to a world where careers change 6 times, cities get swapped every few years, and reinvention is not just possible, but often necessary. So what is actually happening when you feel like it is too late? Your brain is running a prediction system that is cognitively lazy by design, defaulting to sameness because imagining real change costs more mental energy than assuming none will happen. That default is dressed up as self-knowledge when it is really just a rendering shortcut, and the whole illusion can be destabilized by something as small as a birthday or a new week, proving that the feeling was never a fixed fact about you to begin with. This reframes something significant about every too late thought you have ever had or will ever have again. The 45-year-old who believes they cannot switch careers, the 30-year-old convinced their personality is locked in, the 60-year-old certain their best growth is behind them, none of them are reading an accurate forecast of their own future. They are reading a glitch, a system defaulting to the nearest available tile because true prediction is expensive, and your brain, quite reasonably, tries to save its energy wherever it can. Right now, your brain told you a story about how much of you is already finished. The strange truth is that story was never really about you. It was about a prediction system doing the cheapest thing it could, mistaking a lack of imagination for a lack of time.